Before we get into today's episode, I just want to let you know that this is a sponsored episode of the Podiatry Legends Podcast. Every now and then, I'm going to feature products and services that I believe bring value to the podiatry profession. And today's guest is one of those. And I encourage you to listen with an open mind, decide whether it's a good fit for you and your clinic, and just enjoy the conversation. Okay, let's get on with the episode. Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends Podcast. Podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is Caelum. He's a Sydney-based physiotherapist. He's an author, scientific researcher, and a clinic owner. But he is also the founder of Preve. Now, Caelum and the Preve team are on a mission to make practitioners and patients feel superhuman through AI-assisted workflows, from first consult right through to full recovery. So, Caelum, welcome to the Podiatry Legends Podcast. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks, Tyson. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
This is actually really exciting. You explained what you guys have been doing, and I thought it was so cool. And I said, if I had a podiatry clinic right now, I would want to be using this program that you've set up. So, what is Preve?
Yeah, good question. So, Preve is an AI tool or platform for anyone that works in the physical therapies, whether that's podiatry, physiotherapy, osteo, any sort of allied health clinic. And it's what we think of as the next generation of AI tooling. So I'm sure many of your listeners have used an AI scribe before to automate clinical notes and letters. And Preve builds on that foundational technology and takes it to a new level, which is really centered around what the patient receives after the consult. And so rather than it just automating your clinical notes and letters, it actually builds a patient recovery or rehab portal in real time during the consult, and then sends it straight to them via SMS at the end of the appointment. And that includes everything from their exercise programming, including videos, their goals, recommended appointments. And so the whole premise of Preve is it's not just about practitioner efficiency, but it's also about patient retention. Rather than just saving practitioners a couple of hours a day, which it does, it's really driven to try and promote patients getting to the finish line so that they get better clinical outcomes and clinics get better revenue.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I know when people have used other AI programs to help with their notes, they say exactly what you said. Oh, it helps us save time. But you're looking at the back end of it as well, about making sure the patient's following through with treatment plans, but also retaining that patient. Because sometimes businesses focus on, we need to get more new patients, whereas you really should be looking after the patients that are already in front of you and making sure they're coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think when you see your diary and it looks patchy and empty, your natural inclination as a clinic owner is to try and turn on the tap of new patient referrals. But if you've got a leaky bucket, then there's absolutely no point. And I think ultimately, I'll touch on this a bit later, the reasons why I think patients typically do drop out of care, because it is a widespread problem in podiatry and physiotherapy and all of those allied health professions. But ultimately, like at the end of the day, if we're delivering better care to our patients through these automated technological applications, then they're going to get better results. And your practitioners are going to get much more, I guess, joy and longevity out of their careers because they're happy. And then as a clinic owner, your books are going to be full and better PVAs and retention.
And it's not just if a patient isn't returning to your clinic, but it's also who are they then talking to when they don't come back? Are they talking to friends and family at a get together of 50 people, and they're talking to everybody at the party and say, oh yeah, I went to this podiatry clinic and they weren't able to help me. And you're like, but you didn't come back.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize the danger of not following up with patients and making sure they're doing the right thing, the damage it can actually do your clinic.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think as a clinic owner myself, for many years, my probably biggest pain point was how do we get our team of practitioners, we had 20 practitioners, how do we get them to do all of the things that make up perfect consult, which doesn't just include giving the patient excellent care in the room, but it's sending the doctor a follow-up letter, it's making sure your clinical notes are done, it's writing the treatment plan for the patient, it's giving them the exercise programming, and as you mentioned just then, it's also following up with them if they do fall off the wagon. And if you think about that multiplied by the number of patients you see, it's a huge burden on practitioners. And prior to AI, it was nigh impossible to actually achieve that for every single patient. But fortunately, it now is achievable, and it should be the new standard that we're setting in all of our clinics, because there's really no time-related excuse not to deliver that to our patients.
Yeah. Did I hear you correctly? Did you say you had 20 practitioners working with you?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So it was not a small physiotherapy clinic. It was a big physiotherapy clinic.
Yeah, we've got 2 sites and 20 practitioners that work across 2 sites, and that's predominantly physios, but also exercise physiologists, massage therapists, and over the years we've had orthopedic surgeons and also dietitians and sports psychs. So yeah, it's been multi-D for a long time, but predominantly physio-based.
So then this is where it's really important. When you've got that many practitioners seeing that many patients, you want to make sure everybody's following the same pathways when it comes to the treatment, the outcomes, the follow-up. It's not like everybody just running around in their own directions. And then it would get confusing for the business owner to know who's actually doing what.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think whether you're running a clinic of a couple of practitioners or 20 or 30, consistency through your systems is really the difference between that delivery of care that's, I suppose, predictable and doesn't require scrutiny and micromanagement every second of the day by you as a clinic owner, because you know that you have a standard operating procedure, everyone does things the same way, and the standard's set within the clinic. And so where that becomes challenging, I think, is historically quite often these sort of operating systems and standards that you'd set created more work for your practitioners. Yeah. And that was my biggest frustration and one of the reasons that we built Preve, because as a clinic owner, I knew the standard of care that we wanted to deliver to our patients, but I kept asking more and more of my team, and that's where it fell over. They just didn't have the time or the energy to actually deliver that. And so I suppose seeing the foundational technology of transcribing and AI, we were able to go, okay, we now understand that all of the grunt work and the clinical admin that actually goes into delivering that can be automated. And so through that, we've been able to build a system where all of the gold standard kind of things that we want to deliver to our patients in every consult is achievable. And as a clinic owner, it's quite freeing, because you can then ask a lot of your practitioners and you know that you're not asking them to stay back for hours after work to get it done.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people always complain about when it comes to, as a business owner, when I had my business, always have my clinic notes done. But one of the biggest complaints I hear from business owners is them constantly having to get on the back of the people that they employ. Why aren't your notes done? And hearing the same excuses over and over again, until sometimes the business owners just give up and their notes aren't being done. So you briefly mentioned why you started Preve. Was there one or two things that happened that made you decide to do it?
Yeah, there were a couple of catalysts. So I would say for a long time, the main metric as a clinic owner that I was really focused on trying to improve was patient visit averages, PVAs, which I'm sure everyone who works in the physical therapies is familiar with. And it's certainly not a perfect metric, but I think it's a good proxy for your ability to deliver good care in a way that patients are responding to and that enables them to stick around long enough to get a good result. So everybody wins. And so we spent a lot of time and energy and focus trying to move the needle on that metric. And we tried a lot of different strategies to make that happen. And as I alluded to before, we ultimately found that every single strategy that we tried to implement typically meant asking our team to do more, whether it was setting up a pack or an automated subscription for rehab, or having a tough conversation with the patients around the importance. All of these sorts of things were good in theory, but actually when the rubber meets the road, they fall over pretty quickly because practitioners don't have time to do it. And so that was starting to build. at the same time as the potential and possibilities of AI started to enter the scene. And really the thing that kind of got us over the line was I had an old friend reach out, and he's not in healthcare. He's actually a patient at another clinic, and he just recently sold a tech business. And he called me and he said, I've been trying to get rehab on my knee for the last 6 months. I've been to 3 physios, 2 podiatrists, an osteo, and I'm getting handwritten pieces of paper with exercises. I'm getting handwritten treatment plans. The best ones are printing out like a basic Word document about what I should be doing. And I'm having to tell them when I think I should come back. And he was like, we have to do something about this. So we got together and built Preve.
It's amazing that, so it's come from a patient who was frustrated. It's funny. I've seen a lot of healthcare practitioners playing a lot of sport in my life, still doing it now, heaps of injuries. And I always say one of the most frustrating things that I've ever copied as a patient, or even when I owned the business and employed other podiatrists, is if I heard a podiatrist or any healthcare practitioner say to me, just see how it goes.
Yeah.
And I used to go, I know how it's going to go. I'm going to go home. I'm not going to follow up on the piece of paper you gave me with the little drawing I'm going to lose. And then a week will go past and go, what was I supposed to do again? Then 2 weeks go past. Then a month goes past and I'm still in pain. And 3 months later, I'll come back and see you right back to where we started. Or I'll go and see somebody else because I'll be talking to someone, tell them I felt let down. And they go, maybe you should see my physio or my podiatrist, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a classic story. We're all guilty of it as practitioners. And even the best practitioners who set up a really clear treatment plan for their patients on day one and set expectations, unfortunately, patients lose that. They don't look at it after the first or second week. And so when you're 6 weeks down the line, that's when drop off and self-discharge happens. And so we've solved that from a number of different angles with Preve. But yeah, as you say, it's certainly not just a practitioner-led product. It has very much been Adam, my co-founder, on one side of the fence as the patient, myself on the other as practitioner and the clinic owner. And how do we build something that really serves both sides of the equation?
So a lot of the current AI programs or scribes at the moment, like you said, are just taking notes. They're not really solving any problems for the practitioner or for the clinic or for the patient.
Yeah, look, I think they solve a really important problem, which is admin efficiency, but it stops there. And so we've seen a huge explosion of AI scribes in healthcare for good reason. There's no doubt that one of the biggest pain points as practitioners is clinical notes and sending letters to doctors. It was a huge frustration, and it's largely now been solved through these tools. But it doesn't really solve anything beyond that, particularly for the patient. And from a clinic owner's perspective, if your main objective is to try and improve PVAs and retention and bookings and obviously revenue, I don't feel like the current sort of scribe offering really does too much in that realm, other than maybe freeing up an extra couple of appointments per day by reducing clinical admin. So they've been groundbreaking, but we see Preve as really the next generation of this technology.
And by having this in place, so say, for example, I had a patient, they're in the room with me. We've run through the consultation. As I'm going through the consultation, what is Preve doing differently that some of the other programs would be doing?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So the transcription that underlies all of the outputs is really the same. So you're recording your session, it's going to capture all of the context from within the session. But at the conclusion of the appointment, rather than it just producing your clinical notes and potentially a letter for the doctor, it's building this treatment plan for the patient in the background. And so by the time you get to the end of your consult, there's this really clear, clean platform that exists for the patient now, which has their diagnosis, their goals, all of the captured outcome measures that you've taken through the session, their appointment recommendations. It's got exercise prescription, including videos or images. If you've taken any footage of their gait analysis on a treadmill during the appointment, then that's all stored within the treatment plan as well. Yeah. And any other instructions that you've given them in between appointments. And so all of the rich information that you naturally share with your patient in a consult gets captured and packaged up in a way that then drives motivation, retention. And it's not just sent to them after the first consult, but it's automatically updated and then resent after each appointment. And so when that motivation starts to dip a few weeks down the track, they keep getting reoriented to where they actually are in the treatment cycle, the importance of their next session, and it keeps them on rails all the way to the finish line.
And it's doing this in the background so the practitioner doesn't have to think about it. So if I go back one step, though, I'm in the room, it's working at this treatment plan, exercises, what's going to happen related to the problem that they came in with. And do I have to set this up initially, like tick some boxes saying this is what I want after each consultation? Or is it a set thing and we'll just do it automatically?
It's all automatic, but obviously the practitioner is in total control of the output and what gets sent to the patient. So we've done all the hard work in the back end to set up the structure of the platform and the treatment plan. And then it gets auto-generated at the end of the consult for the podiatrist, the practitioner, to then review, make any quick tweaks or adjustments if they need to, and then send it to the patient.
So the practitioner gets to review this. It doesn't just automatically go out without myself having a look at it and go, yes, I definitely want to send that, or no, I don't want to send this.
Correct. Yeah, we see the practitioner as the kind of centerpiece of the care. We would never bypass any of their clinical reasoning or decision making. It's really just about capturing all of their insights and, I guess, clinical expertise and packaging it up in a way that is very tangible and easy to access and appealing for the patient.
Yeah, and I can see how this would 100% help with patient retention and actually stop patients just dropping off unexpectedly. And when I've done marketing workshops, if you go through your number of new patients that have come in and you'll have a start to a treatment and an end of a treatment. I said, you go through the last 100, how many of them, there is no ending. It's just open-ended. I said, and it's an unbelievable amount sometimes.
It's massive. We've done a lot of research and looked into the statistics around this. And a lot of the reports are that 70% of patients self-discharge before they reach the end of their recommended treatment plan or recovery plan. And I would say anecdotally, from talking to thousands of practitioners and clinic owners now, it's actually probably higher than that, closer to 80 to 90%. And a lot of clinics may not realize or recognize it because perhaps they have a really great referral network. And so as soon as the patient drops off, they have a new patient that fills that spot in the diary. And so they don't quite realize that, as I mentioned before, they have a leaky bucket because they've got a really good top of funnel. But it is rife, it is a problem. And I would say it's probably the biggest problem in allied health is this patient self-discharge. And there's a number of different reasons why patients drop off. But in the vast majority of cases, it's not financial. So they've come to see their practitioner with a real problem. They understand before they walk through the doors that there is going to be a financial commitment involved to getting this fixed. And I would say the two biggest reasons why patients drop off are because, number one, they're not seeing visible progress, or they've seen progress up to a point where they no longer feel that their pain supersedes the priorities of the rest of their life. And we've solved for those things within the Preve product. Okay.
Before we go any further, what's your website if people want to jump online and go and check this out or learn a little bit? Well, we're going to keep talking about this, of course, but give me your website, contact details now.
Yeah, so it's Preve, preve.co.co. And you can find demo videos, you can sign up for a free trial there, and I'm always available to jump on a call. Our contact details are on the website.
Cool. So the other part too about unfinished treatment, the amount of money that costs clinics when, like you said, you've got that leaky bucket, and just because there's a lot of patients coming in, the amount of money they could be losing. And I remember talking to someone not too long ago in Ireland, and I told them to go and have a look at this, and it was something like 80% of patients weren't following through. It's like that 80-20, only 20 were getting to the end, 80% were dropping off, and they were totally unaware until they went and looked at the numbers. Yeah,
it's widespread throughout podiatry and all the different physical therapy modalities. And based on what we've explored and researched, on average, there's about 3 to 5 appointments left on the table, i.e. they've been prescribed and not attended by the patients. And that's per patient as well. So if you've got a practitioner in your clinic who's seeing, let's say, 40 patients a week across 46 weeks of the year, and let's say on average they're getting 5 new patients per week, and so across 4 practitioners, let's just say on average you're getting somewhere around 1,000 new patients into your clinic a year.
Yeah.
So let's say $150 per consult, times that by, let's be conservative and say 2 appointments. So you're losing $300 per patient. And then you times that by 1,000 new patients. That's 300 grand in revenue. That's not accounting for any of your existing patients who've come back with new injuries. And that's only 2 lost appointments. The reality is much worse than that. I would say in a small practice of 4 podiatrists, there's probably around about $1 million getting left on the table each year from patient drop-off.
But I think even as a solo practitioner, sometimes you're so busy just with your own admin work, and you may have a receptionist and you're working with them and you're doing the marketing, you're doing everything. And if your clinics, and if you can't find another podiatrist to come and work with you, a lot of people fall through the gaps purely just because your focus is in so many other areas. And I see that a lot in podiatry.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If you've got, let's say, busy lists and all your practitioners are full, then you're much less likely to be focusing on that. You're probably more focused on efficiency and admin automation, but in reality, there are patients who are losing out because they're probably not getting the clinical outcomes that they would if they would have finished their treatment plans. As a clinic, as I mentioned before, there's some significant revenue loss that you're encountering as well. And obviously, we don't want to just think and talk about this in terms of revenue, because at the end of the day, we're all in this game for better clinical outcomes for our patients. But as business owners, obviously, we need to ensure that our bottom line is healthy as well. I think if you are in a clinic where all of your practitioners are really full, doing an audit to see, are they full because we're retaining them, or are they full because we actually have a really healthy top of funnel, but we still have a leaky bucket? And that would be a really nice way to start realizing where you need to plug some of those holes.
Yeah, I've always said if your whole focus is on making money, I always think you're going to find it really hard to make money.
Yeah.
If your whole focus is on always making sure there's a better outcome for the patient, the money is just it's a side effect of really looking after your patients. And you look after your patients by having a great business, and the business has got to run, and everything is going to flow really easily. So Preve just, I don't know, seems like a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah. And as I mentioned before, like the foundational technology of transcription was a great starting place for healthcare. It solved a lot of problems, but it was really, I think, missing the centerpiece of the person in the consult, which is the patient. And so if we can use all of that rich context that gets discussed within the appointment to then go and produce really effective, beautiful outputs for our patients, then everybody wins.
I can see this being really helpful for new and recent graduates who, they've come into the university system, and depending where you're trained and where you may have done some placements, really affects what you're like as a practitioner when you first start. So I can see if this was in place in certain clinics and you're a new or recent graduate, and it's helping to outline what needs to get done next or what's going to help the patient next, one, they don't have to think about it as much, but I think it'll make them a better practitioner long term.
Yeah, it gives them real-time feedback, almost as if they had a clinical advisor in the room, in terms of, have they covered all bases? Have they set out clear expectations for the patient in terms of what's the diagnosis? What is the expected recovery time for this? Why should they attend the appointments? What's the focus for each of these phases? And so it certainly will prompt them to ensure they're communicating really effectively with their patients. And the other thing that Preve does, which I haven't mentioned yet, is it also does have this sort of like clinical assistant capabilities where it will pull context from your most recent consults into the current one and prompt you to ask things or check on things that you may have done last time that need reevaluating. So, for example, if you've in your last consult spoken about the need for them to go and get imaging, it'll prompt you to just check in on whether or not that's been done in this consult. If you've had previous outcome measures that need reassessing, then it surfaces that information and delivers it in a really quick and easy way for the practitioner, so they don't have to go trawling through their clinical notes to find it.
Is that working that out based on the problem that the person's coming with, or just every consultation, it's listening to what you've done previously and it sort of works out your flow?
Yeah, so it looks at your most recent consult with the patient and it draws out any of the important tests that need reassessing, any conversations that you've had that need revisiting again. And that's both clinical but also social. So if you said to me, I'm going to go and watch the France-Spain World Cup match this weekend, the next time they come in, there'll be a little prompt there that says, check in on how the France-Spain game went.
That is super cool. That is really cool. Yeah. So if I was talking to you, I said, okay, you said that you were going to try out for the World Surfing Tournament. And there's a story behind that. That's why I mentioned surfing. If you then came in next, it would prompt me to say, ask whether he is the physiotherapist in the World Surfing Tournament.
Yeah, exactly. It tries to humanize the consult as well as making it clinical. And it draws not only those clinical important tasks and actions to the foreground, but also it'll, in every consult, remind you what their dog's name and their partner's name is and what their favorite food is.
That is fantastic, because that's something I've always used to say to the people working for me. If they tell you something about their son or they're going on a trip overseas, write that down. If they've just bought themselves a little moped, write it down in the notes. And when they come in, just make sure you bring it up, because then it'll let them know that you've actually listened and you care. So this is doing it for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's give practitioners credit and assume that they do a pretty good job of remembering that stuff anyway, but it is handy when you're running back-to-back consults to have a little nudge there sometimes.
I think, but if you're seeing a patient this week and you see him again next week, I would say majority of the time I'd always remember, even no matter how many patients you saw, things that stood out, you'd probably remember it. But if 6 months had passed or a year had passed, if you don't note it down somewhere, you're never going to remember it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think at the end, you touched on it before, but building that rapport and trust and social connection goes such a long way in ensuring that the patient is really bought in to your care as a practitioner, and definitely encourages them to stick to that prescribed plan and feel that deeper connection that will ultimately mean they get better outcomes and hopefully refer more people.
Yeah, and I tell people that all the time. Patients will talk to their friends and family about how much you care about them and how much they trust you, more so than the flashy treatment couch that you have.
Yeah.
Every single time. Hey, so should we do a demo? And I know people who are listening to the podcast might be going, how am I going to figure out a demo? But we're going to do this demo. If you want to see it on YouTube, this episode is on YouTube, of course. Just go to Tyson E. Franklin, find the YouTube channel. But also, just as demo part, I will split and we will create a shorter video that we'll post around to different places so you can see it. But if you stay listening, it will also make sense. So let's do a demo.
Sounds good.
Because I thought it was cool when you showed me.
Okay, you can see that okay?
Yep, I can see it perfectly.
Excellent.
People driving in the car can't, but just take my word on, you can hear it perfectly.
Yeah. So when you first log into Preve, what you'll see is actually your patient's schedule for the day ahead, because Preve integrates with Clinico, Nucal, Prac Suite, a number of different practice management systems. And so given that integration, all of your patients and your schedule for the day ahead actually live here within Preve as well. So you can actually run your whole day from inside the Preve platform, even though I guess your Clinico or Nucal or Prac Suite run your clinic. But most of our users actually they pretty much run their whole day from within Preve, knowing that everything will sync back into their practice management system as well. So when you start a session with your next patient, as I quickly mentioned before, you've got on the right-hand sidebar, all of those key pieces of information around the social history, context about the patient. So in this example, we've got a patient called Emma, and it says that she's an event manager and she loves cooking and salsa dancing, and her partner's name's Tom and she has a pet dog called Bingo. And so that just lives there in the top right-hand corner of your screen. So when Emma comes in, I can go, oh, Emma, how's Bingo going?
Is this the human side of things that you mentioned, that as it picks those things up, it puts these things in the About Emma section?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And then below that, we have the more kind of dynamic checklist, if you will, which is like an AI assistant that I mentioned before. It brings in context from the most recent consults, and then it lists a number of questions and actions to do. So in this particular one, it's making sure that we check in on whether or not Emma's had any side effects from any of that pain relief medication that she mentioned she was taking. It's getting you to retest glute bridge and dorsiflexion range, and ultimately gives you the most recent score and the next milestone as well. It's really about, again, just pulling the most important information to the foreground so you've got that content at your fingertips. And then below that, all of your historical clinical notes live as well. So you've got access to all of that data. So Preve's just recording in the background, and like you would with any kind of AI scribe, you just have to ensure that you're articulating your assessments and your treatment techniques so that the system picks it up. Then at the end of the consult, we just click on the treatment plan button, and you'll see that Preve has generated a treatment plan for this patient, Emma. So based on everything that we've said in the session, it's picked up the condition, so the diagnosis, the expected recovery time that we discussed, any educational content around this particular condition, and it's captured the goals, all of the outcome measures. And so they're listed in terms of, in this particular example, range of motion, strength. There's usually function as well, and it'll break it down in terms of where are they today, and then what's that kind of overall milestone that they're trying to get to. It'll have the recommended appointment schedule based on what you've suggested as a practitioner, and that also includes not just like the number of sessions per week over the time frame, but also the focus and the importance of each of those phases as well. And then we've got our exercise rehab section. So I assume many of your listeners are using platforms like maybe PhysiTrack or Valve or something that they're using to prescribe video content to their patients. So Preve handles all of that as well and replaces those systems. And it does it in a way that's much more dynamic and individualized and much faster as well. So there's 4 different ways that you can add content to your exercises. The first one is what I would call probably like a simple exercise prescription, which is similar to your PhysiTracks and Valves. And really that is essentially just matching to the most clinically relevant video on the web based on what you've said. So let's say with this particular patient, I wanted them to do a double leg glute bridge. Preve will just hear me say that in the session. It'll capture all of the instructions exactly as I've described them to my patient. So it's all listed there exactly with the right cues and coaching. And then it'll surface the top, let's say 20 double leg glute bridges based on how I've said them. And then we can attach that for the patient. So that's the first way. The second way is as a clinic, if you wanted to upload your own content. So if you've maybe pre-filmed content or you wanted to use our app to film your own content, that can also live within your own clinic library. The third option here is you can generate an AI image for your patient in real time based on how you describe that exercise to your patient. So again, it will just take the cues and the instructions and the coaching that you've given your patient while you're showing them. And then it will, in the background, spin up a 3-panel AI image instructing them how to do it. And then you can add additional prompts. And you can see in this example, I've asked the patient to be eating an apple while they do their double leg glute bridge, just to demonstrate how customizable it is.
I did notice that. I saw the person eating an apple and I'm thinking, why are they eating an apple while they're doing this? But you've actually prompted, eat an apple while they're doing this movement.
Exactly. Yeah. And the fourth and probably my favorite way that we prescribe exercises through Preve is by filming the patient in real time during the session.
Okay.
This happens a lot in clinics anyway, but it happens on the patient's phone. So a podiatrist or a practitioner will grab the patient's phone, they'll film them doing the exercise. And it's a way of giving patients individualized content. But the problem with that is you've got then a patient who has these videos buried somewhere in their photo album on their phone with all their baby photos, never to be seen again, and the practitioner has no record of it. So with Preve, we've got an app where you can take it out mid-consult, you can film your patient doing the exercise in real time, and that's stored instantly to this patient's profile in their treatment plan, and it's there ready for them to watch with that highly specific individualized content that you've just filmed. So obviously never locked, never saved to your device, but stored directly to this patient's profile.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's a really neat way of ensuring that your patient's compliance to their exercise prescription goes up without it costing you any more time. And
Yeah.
compared to a system where you have to go searching for exercises every time, with Preve, as soon as you say the exercise in your consult, it will just remember your past preferences and automatically attach those videos or pictures for you to then approve and send.
I like the way you've got options on doing it, though. It's not just, it must be done this way, because everyone's going to have a bit of a preference. And sometimes patients need to see themselves doing something for it to actually make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So once you're happy with your plan, you then go and generate your clinical notes as you would expect. Really fast to do. We've got a bunch of off-the-shelf templates that we've built, including podiatry ones, but you can also customize your own. And if you've got a preference on really brief or highly detailed notes, then you can choose that. And then once you've edited your note and saved it, then you finish your session, and then your clinical notes will automatically save back to your practice management system. And then the treatment plan gets sent straight through to your patient's phone automatically. Now, if you've got an elderly patient who prefers a physical copy, then you can always print a PDF version for them or email it to them. But in the vast majority of cases, it'll come through as an SMS to their phone, and they tap it, and in a single click, they've got this treatment plan which appears on their device. And so they don't have to download an app, which again is a really nice feature of Preve. It's a smart link. It opens straight into their browser, and then they've got this clean treatment plan at their fingertips. So it's got the condition. If they click on that, it's going to open up to have the discussion, or the educational content rather, around exactly what's going on. The exercise prescription section. So it'll have the videos embedded, all the written instructions, the importance of the exercise. And they can also go and flag pain and give feedback to the practitioner if they need to. And then as they mark each of these exercises as done every day, it's just collecting adherence data for you as the podiatrist as well. So you'll get a summary. Yeah, you'll be able to see how consistent they've been with their rehab the next time they come into the appointment.
So when you ask the patient, have you been doing the exercise? And they go, yeah. And you go, now show me. And what they're showing you is completely nothing to do with what you showed them, because they haven't been doing it. They're just making it up on the spot. So it's almost like gamification, where they've got to tick things and they're actively involved in almost trying to win this game.
Yeah, exactly. They get a little bit of confetti after they win the level each day. Yeah, cool. And then, so the next section down, after they've looked at all of the kind of instructions between appointments, is their goal front and center. So constantly just reminding them and reorienting them to what's the primary goal and objective of their kind of recovery journey. And then these more impairment-based outcome measures and milestones. So they get to see exactly where they're at today in terms of their range of motion, their strength, their function, and also what's that next milestone, just to really help ensure that they understand the importance of not only their home rehab, but their next appointment as well. And then the final section are your appointments, and it'll show all your upcoming appointments. It'll show your recommended schedule, including the focus of each phase, the importance, and then a book now button, which enables the patient to book in a single click, which bypasses a lot of the challenges of bookings through Clinico and Nucal and these online booking systems, which aren't necessarily super patient friendly. Yeah.
And what were all the programs you said that you know that it works with?
So yeah, in Australia, currently our practice management integrations are Clinico, Nucal, PracSuite, and we have another 3 or 4 on the way as well. And then in North America, we've got a bunch too.
Okay. And are you releasing this in the UK as well?
Yeah. We've got a large number of UK users, and we're heading to the therapy show in Birmingham later this year, which will be good fun.
So if anyone who has just been listening to this on the podcast, go and check out and visually watch the demo as well, because I think if you're just listening to it, would have made sense, but it makes even more sense when you see it in action.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just show you one final thing before we wrap, which is document creation and an insurance form. So when you spin up, let's say, a doctor's letter through Preve, it builds it not just based on the current transcript, but actually looks at that historical view over time of all of the sessions that you've had with the patient. And it can also reference documents from within your practice management system as well. And then you can send it directly from within Preve, and it'll just save a PDF copy back to your practice management system. And then lastly, any insurance forms that you need to create, whether it's like a workers' comp or a motor vehicle accident or DVA, any of those types of forms can be generated in a single click as well. And it'll just go and pre-fill that full PDF for you. And these are a huge time burden on clinicians. So it's a big win.
Huge win.
And yeah. And then this is the app. The app enables you to run your whole day on your phone. So you don't need a computer to use Preve. You can transcribe, you can generate clinical notes, you can generate treatment plans. But the app's not just for filming exercises. It allows you to do all of the functionality from within Preve and be mobile within the clinic. And one thing that we're seeing podiatrists use the app for quite a lot is actually to film gait analysis on treadmills. And so they'll film their patient walking on a treadmill, and they'll be able to then store that footage within the patient's plan to then reference later as a bit of a before and after to show progress.
Okay, so you said you don't even need a computer. This whole thing can just be done on your phone.
Yeah, you can run Preve through the app as well. Yeah.
Okay. You showed me part of it the other day, and what you just showed me then went in a lot deeper. And even after that brief explanation you gave me, I thought it was fantastic. Now it's even better. So what results are clinics seeing using Preve at the moment?
Yeah, so we've run lots of case studies across various clinics using Preve, and there are a few different domains that we look at and track. Some of the areas that I think will be of most interest to your listeners will be around PVA improvements, clinical admin efficiency, so time saving, the patient's interpretation of the plans, and then obviously revenue numbers as well. Across the board, we typically find that practitioners will save anywhere between 1 to 2 hours a day in clinical admin. And so whether that's from automating notes, letters, exercise, video prescription, treatment plan creation, patient follow-up, all of those things that are time consuming, but really important that we spoke about at the start of the discussion. By automating all of that, it's ultimately giving them either additional time to see patients or additional time with their families, which then means they're getting less burnout and they show up for work in a better frame of mind every day, which is obviously important as well. From that perspective, I suppose it builds on the existing benefits of your typical AI scribes by just automating more things for you. But then where I think we're seeing really exciting benefits is in this patient retention and PVA realm. So typically, on average, we see around about a 30 to 40% improvement in patient visit averages when patients are receiving a treatment plan after every consult, which is massive. So if you've got a practitioner who, let's say they have a PVA of 6, they're seeing on average, they're doing 6 appointments per case with a patient, that usually increases up to about 8. And I mentioned before that this treatment plan gets built in the background and sent to the patient. It gets updated automatically after every appointment and resent to them. So in those sort of latter phases of rehab where they're starting to consider maybe dropping off and deprioritizing rehab, again, it just helps to reorientate them and keep them on rails. So really exciting stats there, both from a patient perspective, because they're getting better clinical outcomes, but obviously also from a clinic perspective.
Yeah, I can see it like for podiatrists too being really beneficial, especially if you're treating patients with orthotics. Sometimes practitioners sometimes feel, once the patient's got the orthotic, what else am I supposed to do with them? There's a lot more that you should be doing with them based on the problems they come in with. This will keep prompting them to make sure the patient's doing what needs to get done. They're not trying to rely 100% on the orthotic going issue that's going to solve every problem. It's educating the patients as well. There's more to a treatment plan than just an orthotic or just shockwave or some form of electrotherapy.
Absolutely. Yeah. All of the adjuncts to orthotics like biomechanical correction and strength training and improving mobility through the foot with manual therapy, like all of those things we know are so important. But if it's not clearly communicated to the patient, not only on day one, but reinforced regularly all the way through that course of care, then that's often when patients start to deprioritize that next appointment. And so through the product, it just helps to keep reinforcing all of the information that maybe the practitioner communicated really well on day one, but unfortunately, patients' memories start to sift out some of those important details over time. And so it just keeps the most important things front of mind for them.
No. So what's next? What are you planning in the future? How are you going to make this bigger and better down the track?
Yeah, so we have two really exciting features in beta at the moment. The first is automated imaging referrals through the Preve platform. Practitioners will be able to, if let's say they say to their patient, Tyson, I think we need to get an X-ray of that foot and ankle just to have a look at maybe a potential fracture, or if it was more of a biomechanical analysis. You can then press a single button in Preve. It will spin up an imaging referral. If it's a Medicare rebatable service through a doctor, then that is also built in. And so Preve will then send the patient a Medicare rebatable referral that they can then book straight through their platform, through one of our partners. And then the imaging report gets delivered straight back to the practitioner through the Preve platform. So that's in beta testing at the moment. Super exciting. We're really looking forward to bringing that to market.
Yeah.
And then the second one, which I'm most excited about, is also in beta, and it's what we're calling Preve Engage. And I mentioned before that through Preve, we're creating and sending patients these treatment plans. And with Preve Engage, what it does is it tracks in real time how consistent and compliant the patient is with appointment attendance. So if you as a practitioner have recommended 8 sessions, for all of your various patients, you'll see a real-time trackable analytics view of whether they're on track or off track with their attendance. And then you have the option to enable automated re-engagement messaging, which prompts them to get back on track if they've fallen off. So I'm sure through practice management systems, you've come across the kind of what I call dumb recall messages, where it says, we haven't seen you in 12 weeks, come and get your feet checked. And the click through and rebooking rates with those is almost non-existent for good reason. But because we have the clinical context, we understand the condition, their goals, the expected number of sessions that should have been attended, where they're up to in their treatment cycle. With Preve Engage, these automated smart clinical messages can be sent to a patient and say, Tyson, you're halfway through your treatment plan. We need to get you back on the golf course as discussed. I can see that you've been struggling to get into all of the prescribed sessions. Caelum has a session at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Would you like it? Single click, book in.
Beautiful.
And that's all automated.
That's so much nicer than, hey, you haven't been here for 12 weeks. Come back in and get your feet checked. And some of the text messages, they're so cold. No wonder the click-through rate is really poor.
Yeah. It's all about that clinical specificity, humanness, the right message at the right time. And then for the clinician and also the clinic owner, the visibility of being able to actually track and trace how many sessions have been prescribed by your team, how many have been attended by the patients, and when they do fall off, automating the process of getting them back on rails again.
Cool. So if people want to get started in this, if podiatrists want to learn more about this, what do they do? How do they get started?
Yeah, so go to preve.co, preve.co. You can click on Start for Free, set up an account, integrate your practice management system, and then we'll get in touch for an onboarding call. And we usually spend 20, 30 minutes just showing you all of the ins and outs of how to use the platform. We'll schedule a time to also train your team for free as well. And usually setup takes no more than a couple of minutes.
Okay. And all the costs involved, if they wanted to take this on board, that's all that information's on your website as well. It wasn't expensive when I looked at it.
No, it's very affordable. And obviously, when you're comparing that to the return on investment of rebookings and additional appointments, you're getting a 10x ROI every week.
Okay. So is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up? Because I think what you're doing is fantastic. It's taking, like you said, the scribing of notes to a whole new level. So anything you want to say before we wrap up this podcast?
Look, I think it's just a really exciting time to be a practitioner and a clinic owner with tools like Preve coming through, because all of a sudden we can deliver this new standard of care to our patients that we always have wanted to, but have lacked the time and resources to be able to do consistently. And we're now in a position where we can do that in the click of a button and know that we're going home on time, we can spend more time with our families, we can service more patients, and they're getting gold standard care in between appointments, not just when they're in the room with you. and it's costing you no extra time.
Okay, that is awesome. So, Caelum, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast, sharing what Preve.co is up to, how it's going to help the podiatry profession. So, thank you very much, and look forward to talking again soon.
Thanks for having me, Tyson. Great to be here.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Caelum Trott and learning more about Preve and the direction AI is heading in allied health. Whether you're already using AI in your clinic or just starting to explore what's possible, I think one of the biggest takeaways from today's discussion is that technology shouldn't just save time. It should help us deliver a better patient experience and ultimately better patient outcomes. If you'd like to learn more about Preve, visit preve.co, that's preve.co, where you can see the platform in action, organise a demo, and find out whether it's the right fit for your practice. And as always, I want to thank you for supporting the Podiatry Legends podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with another podiatrist or clinic owner who you believe would benefit from hearing this information. Those recommendations, they help the podcast grow, but they also help the profession grow. So anyway, that's it from me this week. I want you to look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now.